I woke up at the bottom of my pool, staring up at the distorted sunlight through 4 feet of water. My lungs burned, my heart hammered erratically. And in that moment, as my neighbor's pool skimmer pulled me to the surface, I realized this wasn't an accident. Someone was trying to kill me. 12 hours later, I sat in the ER at Scottsdale Medical Center, wrapped in a hospital blanket, while Dr. Patel reviewed my blood work with a frown that made my stomach drop. "Emily, your blood sugar is critically low, 34 milligrams per deciliter. That's dangerously hypoglycemic. But you're not diabetic. You've never been diabetic." The confusion on her face mirrored my own. "How is that possible?" My voice came out shaky. I'd been having dizzy spells for weeks, heart palpitations, exhaustion so profound I could barely make it up the stairs. But my regular doctor, Dr. Stevens, had dismissed it as stress. Maybe early heart disease at your age. He'd prescribed rest and suggested I was overreacting. Dr. Patel pulled up a chair. "Emily, hypoglycemia this severe in a non-diabetic doesn't just happen. Either you're developing a very rare pancreatic tumor, or someone is administering insulin to you." Her words hung in the air like smoke. My hand started trembling, and it wasn't from low blood sugar. "That's insane. Who would?" I stopped. Because in my 65-year-old mind, I could only think of one person who'd had constant access to my food and drinks for the past 4 months. One person who'd been so helpful, so attentive, so eager to make my life easier while my daughter Sarah dealt with her difficult pregnancy. Derek, my son-in-law. Let me back up, because even I didn't want to believe it at first. Sarah is my only child. She's 38, a pediatric nurse, and she'd been trying to get pregnant for 6 years. Last year, after 3 rounds of IVF, she finally succeeded. She was due in 2 months, and the pregnancy had been rough. Severe morning sickness, gestational diabetes, constant fatigue. My daughter needed help. Derek had been laid off from his tech job 8 months ago. Some restructuring thing at his company. He'd been looking for work, but the market was tough. When Sarah suggested they temporarily move in with me in Scottsdale, help me around the house while I helped them prepare for the baby, it seemed like perfect timing. I'd been rattling around in my 4-bedroom home alone since my divorce 5 years ago. My ex-husband Robert and I had built a good life here. Successful architectural firm, beautiful modern house with a pool, the kind of Arizona retirement dream People magazine articles about. Then Robert decided at 62 that he needed to find himself with his 34-year-old receptionist, and suddenly that dream imploded. But I'd rebuilt. I had my garden, my book club, my best friend Carmen who lived 2 streets over. I was content. Still, having Sarah around, preparing for my first grandchild, that sounded lovely. They moved in last March. At first, everything was wonderful. Sarah would sit by the pool with her feet up, and we'd talk about baby names and nursery colors. Derek seemed attentive, constantly asking if I needed anything, taking over the grocery shopping, insisting on cooking dinner so Sarah could rest. "You've done so much for Sarah her whole life," he'd say with that charming smile of his. "Let me take care of both of you now." By May, I started feeling off. Just tired at first, like I couldn't quite catch up on sleep. Then came the dizziness. I'd stand up too fast and the room would spin. My heart would race for no reason, pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, shaking, feeling like I was dying. "Mom, you're working too hard in the garden in this heat," Sarah said, concerned but not alarmed. "You need to pace yourself." Derek was more solicitous. He'd make me special protein smoothies in the morning, full of nutrients to help your energy levels, he'd explain, handing me the glass with ice and a straw. He started preparing my breakfast separately from theirs. "Your blood pressure, Emily. You need less sodium." By June, I could barely function. The dizzy spells were constant. I'd be folding laundry and suddenly need to sit down before I collapsed. Twice, I'd felt my heart do this terrifying flutter-skip thing that left me gasping. I went to Dr. Stevens. He ran some basic tests and shrugged. "You're 65, Emily. Your body's changing. Probably early signs of cardiovascular disease. We can start you on a beta blocker. Get more rest, less stress." But the medication didn't help. If anything, I got worse. That's when Derek suggested we update my insurance. just to be safe," he said. "Sarah's worried about you. And with the baby coming, we want to make sure everything's in order." I should have questioned why he was so interested in my life insurance, but I was foggy, exhausted, and honestly touched that he cared. He helped me fill out the paperwork for a new policy. $1.5 million. Sarah's the beneficiary, of course, but Derek explained that as her husband, he'd manage it if anything happened to me. Standard stuff. I signed everything. God, I signed everything. The pool incident happened on a Tuesday afternoon. It was 104 degrees, and I'd gone out to water my tomato plants by the pool. I remember feeling dizzy, the familiar spinning sensation. Then nothing. Just darkness and the shock of water closing over my head. My neighbor, Frank, saw me go under from his second-floor window. He jumped his fence and pulled me out. Saved my life. At the hospital, while Dr. Patel was explaining the impossible blood sugar levels, Carmen arrived. Frank had called her. She took one look at me and started asking questions that no one else had thought to ask. "Emily, when do these episodes happen? Have you noticed a pattern?" I thought about it. Always after meals. Specifically, after drinking Derek's smoothies or eating breakfasts he'd prepared just for me. Whenever Sarah cooked, or when I'd grab something quick on my own, I felt better, clearer. Carmen, who'd been an ICU nurse for 30 years before retiring, went very still. "Emily, I need to ask you something, and I don't want you to think I'm crazy. Does Derek have access to insulin?" The question seemed random until it wasn't. "Sarah has gestational diabetes," I said slowly. "She injects insulin twice a day. Derek helps her with it sometimes because her hands shake." Carmen looked at Dr. Patel. "Test for synthetic insulin. Not just glucose levels, but specifically test for insulin antibodies and C-peptide levels." Dr. Patel's eyes widened. She got it immediately. She ordered the tests. 3 hours later, she came back with results that changed everything. "Your body has extremely elevated insulin levels, but your C-peptide is low. That means the insulin is coming from an external source. Emily, someone has been injecting you with insulin, or adding it to your food or drinks. This is attempted murder." The room tilted. Not from low blood sugar this time, but from the sheer horror of understanding. Derek had been poisoning me. For months, systematically. And he'd nearly succeeded. "But why?" I whispered. Carmen pulled out her phone. She'd been Googling while we waited for results. "Emily, you took out a new life insurance policy 2 months ago, didn't you? Who's the beneficiary?" "Sarah," I said. "But Derek would—" I stopped. "Derek would control it as her husband, $1.5 million. And with Sarah about to have a baby, overwhelmed, grieving her mother, he'd have total control of that money." "He's unemployed," Carmen said quietly. "You said he's been looking for work for 8 months with no success. Emily, your death solves all his financial problems." The rage that filled me then wasn't hot and explosive. It was ice cold, crystalline clear. The same cold fury I'd felt during my divorce when I'd discovered Robert's affair. The same calculated calm that had helped me build a successful career, negotiate contracts, refuse to be underestimated. "I'm not going to the police yet," I told Carmen and Dr. Patel. "Not until I have proof he can't deny." "Emily," Dr. Patel started, "this is dangerous. I need irrefutable evidence. He's going to claim he didn't know it was insulin, that Sarah must have made a mistake, that I'm confused. It becomes," he said, she said, "I need him on camera. I need him caught in the act." Carmen squeezed my hand. "Then I'm helping you, and we're doing this smart." Over the next week, I became someone I barely recognized. Dr. Patel kept me on IV fluids and monitored me daily. She prescribed glucose tablets and taught me how to immediately counteract insulin poisoning. "If you're going to keep accepting food from him," she warned, "you need to have glucose gel on you at all times, and we're testing your blood 3 times a day." Carmen helped me install cameras, not just in the kitchen, but in my bedroom, the living room, anywhere Derek might have access to my drinks or food. Tiny wireless cameras that looked like phone chargers and picture frames. Completely invisible unless you knew what to look for. The hardest part was acting normal, going home from the hospital and pretending I believed the pool incident was just a dizzy spell, accepting Derek's concerned, hovering, drinking his poisoned smoothies, and then, the moment I was alone, forcing myself to chug glucose gel and test my blood sugar. I documented everything: timestamps, blood sugar readings, photos of every meal he prepared. I also did something that made my hands shake. I went into Sarah's bathroom when she was napping and photographed her insulin vials. Then I checked them again 3 days later. The level had dropped significantly more than her prescribed dose would account for. He was stealing her insulin to poison me. On day 4 of surveillance, we got it. Carmen and I were at her house, reviewing the footage on her laptop. There, at 6:47 a.m., was Derek in my kitchen. He made my smoothie like always. Blueberries, protein powder, almond milk, all normal. Then he glanced at the doorway, checking if anyone was coming, reached into his pocket, and pulled out one of Sarah's insulin pens. Carmen and I watched in horrified silence as Derek carefully dialed up the pen, removed the smoothie from the blender, and injected a dose directly into the cup. He stirred it thoroughly, disposed of the pen cap in his pocket, not the trash, and poured my poisoned breakfast into my special insulated cup. "Oh my God," Carmen breathed. "He's not even trying to hide it anymore. He thinks you're almost dead." We reviewed 4 more days of footage. Every single morning, the same ritual. Sometimes he added insulin to my orange juice. Once, to the soup he'd made for my lunch. The doses were getting bigger. He was escalating. "I need to know about the insurance," I said. I called my insurance agent, Martha, with a question that I prayed had an obvious answer. "If I die within the first year of the policy, what happens?" "There's a contestability period," Martha explained. "If you die within 2 years of signing, the insurance company investigates." "But Emily, why are you asking this?" "Just curious," I lied. "What if it's ruled accidental death? Then the policy pays double. 2 years for accidental death benefits. Your beneficiary would get $3 million instead of $1.5 million. $3 million. That's what my life was worth to Derek. That's what he was willing to kill for." "I need to tell Sarah," I said to Carmen. "I can't let her go into labor not knowing." "Not yet," Carmen said firmly. "She's 36 weeks pregnant. The stress could trigger premature labor. We need to get Derek arrested first, then tell her somewhere safe, with medical support." So I did something that still haunts me. I called Sarah while Derek was out, asked her to meet me at Carmen's house for tea. I didn't tell her why. When she arrived, 8 months pregnant and glowing, I sat her down and played her the videos. I watched my daughter's face crumble, watched her go from confusion to horror to denial to anguished acceptance in the span of 10 minutes. She kept saying no, 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 just like her voice was breaking. But then her expression changed. Hardened. She put her hand on her belly, on my grandchild, and said, "What do we need to do to make sure he goes to prison forever?" My daughter, my strong, fierce daughter, was 7 times more terrifying than I'd ever been. "We need a confession," I said. "The videos are good, but his lawyer will claim he didn't know it was insulin, that he thought it was a vitamin supplement. We need him admitting he knew exactly what he was doing." "I'll wear a wire," Sarah said immediately. "I'll get him to tell me." "Absolutely not," Carmen and I said in unison. "You're pregnant. We're not putting you in that position." Instead, we brought in an expert, Harrison Stone, the prosecutor from the Maricopa County Elder Abuse Division, a man who'd built his career on cases like mine. He looked at our evidence and smiled the grim smile of someone who knew he had an airtight case. "This is attempted murder, premeditated and systematic. Insurance fraud. Elder abuse. He's going to prison for decades." "But you're right. A confession would seal it completely. Mrs. Rodriguez, are you willing to wear a wire and confront him?" I thought about it, thought about my daughter, about my grandchild due in 6 weeks, about all the years I'd almost lost. "Yes," I said. "Let's end this." They set me up with a wire so sophisticated it looked like a fitness tracker. Detective Sarah Mills and Detective James Cooper would be parked outside, listening to every word. The plan was simple. I'd confront Derek, act like I'd figured it out but had no proof, see if his arrogance would make him confess. It was a Saturday morning. Sarah had gone to her prenatal yoga class. Derek was in the kitchen, making my usual smoothie. I walked in with the printed insurance policy in my hand. "Derek, we need to talk about this life insurance policy you had me sign." He looked up, wary but not panicked yet. "What about it?" Why did you insist I increase the coverage to $1.5 million? And why is the beneficiary arrangement structured so you control everything if Sarah inherits? His jaw tightened. I was helping you plan responsibly. Sarah's going to have a baby. You want to make sure she's taken care of. I stepped closer, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. I had a dizzy spell yesterday. Another one. Dr. Patel said my blood sugar was dangerously low. Strange, isn't it, since I'm not diabetic? He went very still. Some people develop hypoglycemia as they age. The doctor said it's like someone's been giving me insulin. Derek, Sarah's insulin supply has been running out faster than her prescription schedule. Are you taking her insulin? The color drained from his face, then came back as anger. Are you accusing me of something? Because that's insane, Emily. You're confused. Maybe the dizzy spells are affecting your memory. I'm not confused. I pulled out my phone, pulled up one of the videos. I have cameras, Derek. I've been recording everything. I watched you inject insulin into my smoothie 4 times this week. He stared at the screen. For a moment, I thought he'd deny it, lawyer up, shut down. But instead, something shifted in his expression. Something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. You weren't supposed to figure it out, he said quietly. It was supposed to look like heart failure. A 65-year-old woman, family history of cardiovascular disease, drowns in her pool after a cardiac event. Clean, sad, accidental. Why? I whispered, even though I knew, even though I needed him to say it. $3 million, Emily. That's what your accidental death is worth. $3 million that I desperately need because I've been unemployed for almost a year and we're about to have a baby. $3 million that would set us up for life. Us? Derek, you mean you. Sarah doesn't know about this. Sarah doesn't need to know, he said, and his voice was so calm it made my blood run cold. She'll grieve. She'll collect the insurance money, and I'll manage it. She'll never suspect anything. She loves me. She trusts me. And in a few years, when she's forgotten about you, we'll have a perfect life funded by your death. But I almost died in the pool. I fought to keep my voice steady. Frank saved me. That was unfortunate. He looked almost annoyed, like I was a project that wasn't going to plan. But it proved my point. You're fragile, Emily. It's just a matter of time. And I'm patient. I've been doing this for 4 months. I can keep going. You're willing to kill me for money? To make Sarah a widow while she's pregnant with your child? He shrugged. You're old anyway. How many more years did you realistically have? 10? 15? I'm just speeding things up. And Sarah and the baby will be financially secure. In a way, you should be thanking me for thinking ahead. That's when I heard it, the sound of Sarah's key in the front door. She wasn't supposed to be back for another hour. Derek heard it too. His eyes widened. You need to delete those videos, Emily, right now, or I'll tell Sarah you're having dementia, that you're making up crazy stories about me. Who do you think she'll believe? Her mother with dizzy spells and confusion, or her husband who's been taking care of both of you? Sarah walked into the kitchen, took in the scene. Me with my phone, Derek's guilty expression, the smoothie on the counter. I heard everything, she said, her voice shaking. Her hand was on her belly, protective. I didn't go to yoga. Detective Mills called me, told me to come back and stay by the front door. I heard every word, Derek. Every single word. Derek's face went from shock to rage to desperate calculation. Sarah, baby, she set me up. She's trying to frame me. You can't believe. You were poisoning my mother, Sarah's voice broke. You were going to kill her for insurance money. You've been stealing my insulin. You called her old. You said you were just speeding things up. The front door opened again. Detectives Mills and Cooper entered, badges out. Derek Anderson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and elder abuse. I watched Derek's whole body sag, then watched his expression harden into something ugly. This is entrapment, he spat. I want a lawyer. Smart choice, Harrison Stone said, emerging from the hallway where he'd been listening. You're going to need an excellent one. They arrested him right there in my kitchen. Read him his rights in the same spot where he'd prepared my poisoned breakfast an hour earlier. Handcuffed him while Sarah stood there, crying, one hand on her pregnant belly. The moment the police car pulled away, Sarah's water broke. Carmen drove us to the hospital while I held Sarah's hand in the back seat. She was sobbing, hyperventilating, and going into early labor all at once. "I did this," she kept saying. "I brought him into our lives. He tried to kill you because of me." "Stop," I said firmly, in the same voice I'd used when she was 5 and blamed herself for her goldfish dying. "This is not your fault. Derek is responsible for Derek's actions. Not you. Never you." But Sarah's guilt was profound. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs, for not protecting me, for loving someone capable of such evil. The labor was fast and brutal. My grandson, Tyler Robert Rodriguez, was born 6 weeks early at 4:37 p.m., 4 pounds, 6 ounces. Tiny, perfect, and needing immediate NICU care. Sarah held him for 90 seconds before they took him to stabilize his breathing. In those 90 seconds, she looked at him, then at me, and said, "I'm filing for divorce the moment I'm out of this bed." The trial took 6 months. 6 months of testimony, expert witnesses, video evidence, and Derek's lawyer trying every defense imaginable. He claimed he thought the insulin was a vitamin supplement. He claimed I was senile and confused. He claimed Sarah was in on it, trying to frame him after their marriage fell apart. None of it worked. The jury took 2 hours to convict him on all counts. Attempted first-degree murder, 2 counts of insurance fraud, elder abuse, and theft of prescription medication. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison without possibility of parole for the first 12 years. "Mr. Anderson," Judge Patricia Martinez said, "you engaged in a calculated, prolonged attempt to murder your mother-in-law for financial gain. You stole medication from your pregnant wife. You betrayed every bond of family and trust. You are a danger to society, and particularly to vulnerable elderly individuals who trust their family members to care for them, not kill them." Derek stared straight ahead. He never looked at me. Not once during the entire trial. But I looked at him, studying his face, trying to understand how I'd missed it. The coldness behind the helpful gestures, the greed under the smiles. Sarah sat beside me throughout the trial, Tyler in her arms. The baby had spent 3 weeks in the NICU but was thriving now, strong, healthy, perfect. Derek never asked to see him, not once. "I should have protected you," Sarah said one night over tea at my kitchen table. Real tea that I'd made myself in my kitchen that finally felt safe again. "You didn't know," I reminded her. "You couldn't have known. But I brought him into your home." She started crying. "Mom, he almost succeeded. If you hadn't figured it out, if Carmen hadn't pushed for those tests, if Frank hadn't seen you in the pool, you'd be dead. And I'd have raised Tyler thinking my mother died of natural causes, never knowing my husband murdered you." I took her hand. "Derek is responsible for his actions, not you. And look at us now. We're both alive. Tyler's thriving. We survived." After the trial, I did something that made headlines. I sued Derek's parents for enabling his financial crimes. Turned out his mother had known about the insurance scheme. Text messages revealed conversations about that Rodriguez money and how Emily can't live forever, speed things up. She hadn't known about the murder part, she claimed, but she'd encouraged the insurance policy and the manipulative tactics. The civil suit recovered $350,000, everything they'd helped him hide in offshore accounts. I donated it all to the Scottsdale Elder Abuse Prevention Center. "I don't need Derek's blood money," I told Harrison Stone. "But maybe it can help someone else in my situation, someone who doesn't have Carmen and Frank and resources to fight back." The case made national news. Son-in-law poisons mother-in-law with insulin for insurance money. The Arizona Republic ran a front-page story. A true crime podcast did a 3-part series that got 2 million downloads. Reddit had a field day, though they completely misunderstood the pool incident and thought I'd faked it for attention. I was approached by dozens of media outlets. I accepted one, a documentary about financial elder abuse for PBS. If my story could help even one person recognize the warning signs, it was worth reliving it. Now, 18 months later, I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. My blood sugar is stable. The heart palpitations are gone. I can work in my garden without fear. Sarah and Tyler live with me. She's back to work part-time as a nurse, and I watch Tyler 3 days a week. He's 14 months old now, walking, babbling, completely unaware of the darkness that surrounded his birth. Sarah's in therapy. Good therapy. Slowly learning to trust again. She started dating, carefully, with extreme vetting that involves background checks and Carmen's approval. I hope someday she finds someone who deserves her. For now, she's focused on Tyler and rebuilding her life. I change my will, not out of spite, but to reflect my values. Sarah gets the house, always. The rest goes to elder abuse prevention organizations, domestic violence shelters, and programs supporting single mothers. I'm glad you're giving it away, Sarah said when I told her. After Derek, I don't want to think about inheritance. I just want you alive and healthy for as long as possible. I want Tyler to know his grandmother. Some nights I still wake up at 3 a.m., with phantom heart palpitations, convinced I can hear Derek in the kitchen preparing my poisoned breakfast. Then I remember he's in prison. I'm safe. Tyler's sleeping peacefully in the nursery. It's over. But trauma doesn't follow logic. It follows memory. People ask if I regret letting them move in. The honest answer, I don't know. Part of me thinks I should have trusted my instincts, maintained boundaries. But another part recognizes that Derek would have found another way. Predators always do. What I don't regret is fighting back, documenting everything, building my case methodically. Harrison Stone told me that most elder abuse cases fail because of insufficient evidence, because victims don't want to believe their family would hurt them, because they're too scared or ashamed to fight back. You did everything right, he said after the sentencing. You saved your own life, and probably saved dozens of other victims Derek might have targeted in the future. I'm 67 now. I have good years left, God willing. Years I almost didn't have. Last month, I spoke at a senior center about recognizing financial abuse. Afterward, a 78-year-old woman approached me, crying. My son keeps asking me to update my life insurance and add him as beneficiary. He says it's just paperwork, but something feels wrong. I thought I was being paranoid. I took her hand. You're not paranoid. Trust your instincts. And here's what you need to watch for. Someone overly interested in your finances, disguised as helping. Symptoms that improve when you're away from that person. Pressure to update wills or insurance. Isolation from friends who might notice something's wrong. I gave her Carmen's number and Harrison Stone's card. 2 weeks later, she called to tell me she discovered her son had already taken out a policy in her name, forging her signature. He was arrested. She was safe. That's my purpose now, helping others recognize what I almost missed. Every morning, I make my own breakfast, my own smoothie with blueberries and protein powder. I sit in my kitchen, the kitchen Derek tried to turn into a crime scene, and I'm grateful. Grateful for Carmen's intervention, for Dr. Patel's thoroughness, for Frank's quick action at the pool, for my own stubborn refusal to become a victim quietly. Grateful most of all to still be alive. Tyler just took his first steps yesterday. He walked from Sarah to me, arms outstretched, that beautiful toddler laugh filling my living room. I caught him, lifted him up and thought, Derek wanted to steal this. These moments, this joy, but he failed. I water my garden every evening now. The roses I planted 15 years ago are blooming. The vegetable bed produces more tomatoes than Sarah and I can eat. Life persists. Life wins. And me? I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living fiercely, gratefully, with clear eyes and a full heart and zero tolerance for anyone who thinks age makes me weak or vulnerable or disposable. Because here's what I learned. Being targeted doesn't make you a victim. Fighting back makes you a survivor. Protecting yourself isn't paranoid, it's smart. And trusting your instincts, even when everyone else says you're overreacting, can save your life. I'm Tyler's grandmother. I plan to be around for his first day of school, his graduation, his wedding. I plan to teach him to garden and to spot manipulation and to never, ever underestimate the strength of women who refuse to die quietly. Derek gets out of prison when he's 58 years old. Tyler will be 26, old enough to understand exactly who his father was, what he did, and why we survived despite him. And I'll still be here, still gardening, still living, still fiercely, gratefully, defiantly alive.